Do you know how to cry on cue?
Yeah.
How do you do it?
I pinch myself in the testicles really hard.
Okay.
It works every time. No. So I couldn't help myself.
That answer.
I couldn't help myself. You know, it's not it on. It's yeah. It you know, on cue sounds so like. Und now we cry, yeah. Und now we laugh, und now we dance. You know.
Like sprockets.
Yeah, sprockets. Yeah, exactly.
Sprockets?
It's
Yeah.
the ridiculousness of that skit.
That was so great.
But there's so much more that goes into it. You know, no one just you cry on cue. It sounds bananas. Okay, cry. But it is that too. It is that too. But there's the whole dynamic of the story and the emotional arc of the character and what's happening in the given moment and the characters in the scene and what's preceded it and that help inform the whole thing. And ironically, I was in a scene and I'm crying and I was laughing and just making jokes the whole time in between takes. And I forget who it was right now. It was the first AD or somebody came up and started being the director, which that's so fun when that happens. Yeah. And it came up and said something like, man, don't you gotta want to keep it together, not too much. I'm like, I didn't know you were directing today. I'm sorry. Hang on. And I called the director over and I just made fun of it, but just called it out and had fun with it. I wasn't trying to create his big scene, and I knew where he was coming from. And we were all cool. I like the guy a lot, but that was part of my process, right? Because in my mind now, crying and laughing, it's the flip side of the same coin. Right?
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's the same coin. It's the flip side. You're laughing here, you're crying there. So, I mean, I don't analyze everything so intently, but for me, I got to have fun and I got to do what I'm doing. I walk around trying to be heavy and everything else during the take or throughout the day because I know that, around 4 o'clock we're going to shoot that scene, and scene 52 is just, it's the emotional apex of that character. You're going to get there and you're just going to, it won't go well for you. It won't, I'm speaking for myself. It won't go well. I've done it before.
But do you think it's okay that some actors have their own process and that they maybe need to be more removed?
Sure.
And because I know sometimes there's like this, they won't come to, they're too, but maybe that's just their process.
Yeah.
There's like this weird stigma, I think.
Yeah, well, all that happens. That's for sure. That's happened. Someone won't come to set, or, someone's got earphones in, they're listening to whatever they're listening to, or someone won't even talk to you, right?
That's Hollywood in general.
That happens to you too?
That's going to the supermarket, yeah.
It was just me. But yeah, you got to respect the person's process. It's just, when you start saying that, the times that has happened, like so-and-so won't come to set, it's not about their process. It's more about, it's more about something else.
Something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess too, it could depend on the level that person's at and what they're going through, and maybe are they going to be hit up for, it's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I guess I can understand.
There's a lot, right? There's a whole lot going on, and every time you start a new job, or if it's day one of the job and you're throughout the whole process, it's a new job, it's a new company, it's a new production. Everyone's got to get to know each other. Right? A friend of mine just started doing a movie, and the first day was a little bumpy. The second day was really bumpy. Oh. And so much so he's like, oh my God, if this whole thing's going to be like this. And he goes, I'm just going to go home and have a drink and relax and, breathe and get up and see what tomorrow brings me. And sure enough, smooth sailing. It was just that little bumpy, rough patch. So, that's another one of those things that you get to experience in this business that you may not necessarily in other businesses. Usually it's you going to, in the real world, so to speak, or in another industry, you're the new person, you go to your job, everyone else has been there, the building's been there, the dynamics at play, the politics are at play, you have to learn how to fit in. In our industry, everything's new. The politics haven't been established necessarily, or each department has their own politics. And then all the politics from all the different departments come together, right?
That's a great point.
It's going to get bumpy.
Yeah,
it's going to
that's
get
very
messy.
true.
There are going to be some storms. There are going to be some windy days. There are going to be some really hot, dry days. You just got to keep breathing, baby. Just keep going through it, you know?
Right, and typically people are usually on their best behavior like the first few days of something.
You would hope.
One would hope.
Hello, lovely to meet you, Karen.
Pretty
My
much.
name is Dar.
Pretty much, and everyone's, upbeat and they're working and they're great.
Yeah.
But then, people are people and everybody has an ego and everybody gets tweaked over certain things, and it's
Usually about day 3 or 4, someone has some bad chili and the crew member farts in the middle of your take.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm
hopefully they're able
kidding,
to
but
get some Pepto-Bismol.
Exactly. But no, things start to happen.
Sure.
Someone says something really hilarious, breaks the ice, the tension, then the conversation starts to flow. Someone does something that they shouldn't have done. Oh no, the judgment and the criticisms come out, and then all the clicks and the passive aggressive behavior, and then someone comes in, a good producer comes in, and they're a psychologist, and they're a negotiator, and if they're not, they learn really quickly. They got to brush up on that. They come in and mend that before it gets too messy, because there's a lot riding on this.
Yeah, it's weird when you can kind of feel there's there's unspoken cliques.
Oh, yeah.
And do you violate that by trying to join the clique? Or no, does that break sort of the social mores, or I don't know if that's the right term.
I have a unique perspective because I moved so much. I was always the new guy, and I always felt that. I had to learn how to navigate that right away. And there is a time when it's okay to insert yourself into that energy and start talking and mingling with it. And there's a time where it's like, now's not the time, right? And you just don't want it to let the fear of should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, should, right? Just trust your instinct, your gut, and you'll know when the right time is, because look, you're all there to create something together. And that's cool if that's their clique, and you don't fit that clique, you don't fit that clique. Doesn't mean you still can't be friendly.
That's true.
Doesn't mean you still can't say hi and
Right.
respect their space and they respect yours.
I saw this nice quote, and it said something like, and I'm butchering it, but just like saying hi to someone that you don't like is just being an adult.
Pretty much.
And I was like, that there is a lot of truth in that. Even if you have to kind of force it and you're like, yeah, hey, and you're like, cool, now they're over there, that's great. But it's just being sort of like, hey, I'm over here, I respect the fact that you're there, doesn't mean we have to be friends, but I'm just going to say hi. That's all it is.
I know.
And so I thought that was interesting.
So simple, right?
Yeah.
So simple. I know. Yeah. Sometimes things in this business, because it's a more emotional, nature, because you're creating art and emotions are heightened as you're telling this story, that can kind of bleed over into the real life, because there's the manufactured thing through the lens that we're creating, and then some of that might bleed off into the real life, and people start to act stupid, and it's like, wait a minute, look, all right, so-and-so's however they are, doesn't mean you can't just still be pleasant and get through your day, right? Right. You don't have to turn into, it doesn't have to turn into a catty thing or, this macho thing or this aggressive thing. It doesn't have to be that. Yeah.
Yeah. You think it comes from maybe being more of the outcast? Then you realize you don't want to leave people out. Yeah, you're like, you know what? I'll say hi, even though this isn't really my kind of person, but I'll say hi. And
yeah,
wanting to
I'm
include
always
people.
aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm always aware of that. But it's part of me growing up. When you're the outsider, you know what that's like. Mm-hmm. It can be a lonely, weird, uncomfortable place. So I always make an effort to go and talk to. When I see that person, I just go over and test the water, see what's going on. And usually, sometimes all you have to do is listen. Just listen. It's amazing what happens when someone feels like they're being heard. You can just watch them blossom right in front of you. Here's an interesting story. I just thought of